Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're doing something really fascinating. We're going to unpack Karl von Clausewitz's legendary concept of friction and apply it strictly to compare the combat leadership of two vastly different commanders, operating in totally different eras and environments. We're looking at German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel during the North African campaign of 1941-42, and Paraguayan General José Eduvigis Díaz in the grueling War of the Triple Alliance. Let's just jump right in.
Think about a time you mapped out a totally perfect day, right down to the minute. How often does that actually go exactly as expected? Almost never, right? You hit traffic, your tech completely crashes, or a meeting just drags on forever. Now take that incredibly relatable problem, strip away all your certainty, and magnify the stakes to literal national survival. That right there is your gateway into military strategy. And honestly, it was the absolute core obsession of military theorist Karl von Clausewitz.
Section 1. War on Paper, the Mathematical Illusion. Okay, let's dive right into our theoretical foundation here. In theory, strategy looks, well, simple. It's logical, it's mathematical. It almost looks like a giant game of geometry, where commands get handed down and the military machine just pivots smoothly to execute them. But Clausewitz realized pretty quickly that real war is infinitely complex. It's deeply emotional, incredibly chaotic, and actively resistant to control. The pristine, highly predictable reality that generals envision back at headquarters, it literally never matches the messy, brutal reality that actually plays out on the battlefield. Section 2. The Force of Friction. Sand in the Gears. Clausewitz used this brilliant and honestly very relatable mechanical metaphor to explain exactly why paper plans fall apart. He called it sand in the gears of an intricate machine. He defined this unseen antagonist as friction. It's that all-pervading element that separates real war from war on paper. He gives this incredibly vivid example. Imagine walking. It's the simplest human movement, right? Now imagine trying to walk in deep water. Suddenly, every single step you take requires immense, exhausting physical and psychological effort. That is exactly what friction does to a military plan. It's the resistance that makes the absolute simplest things incredibly difficult.
Just consider this really profound observation from his landmark book, On War. He wrote, "Everything in war is very simple, but the simplest thing is difficult." Clausewitz hit the nail on the head here. He realized that plans inevitably fail because a military machine isn't just one solid, predictable piece of iron. It's made up of thousands of individual human beings. And every single one of those individuals brings their own potential for error, for exhaustion, and for friction.
So what actually causes this friction? Well, we're talking about a massive combination of factors. Bad weather, like fog that completely blinds commanders, or rain that ruins roads and bogs down in advance. Then you have extreme physical fatigue, hunger, and sickness that just eat away at troop strength. On top of that, intelligence is notoriously unreliable. It trickles in late or it's just completely wrong. Add in countless minor chance incidents and totally unavoidable errors in human judgment. You see, it's rarely one massive glaring mistake that ruins a perfect plan. It's usually a bunch of countless minor incidents that just accumulate and drag down the entire operation's general level of performance.
Section 3. The Realm of Chance. Guesswork and Luck.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how this unpredictable force creates what Clausewitz termed the atmosphere of war. Basically, it's formed by the coalescence of intense danger, severe physical exertion, faulty intelligence, and that ever-present friction we just talked about. When these four elements combine, they create this medium of extreme uncertainty. It actively messes with organized activity, transforming calculated military action into this chaotic realm that's governed by, pure chance. Which leads him to famously state, in the whole range of human activities, war most closely resembles a game of cards. Absolute mathematical factors just absolutely refuse to hold up under the weight of actual conflict. Literally from the very first shot, war becomes this wild interplay of possibilities, probabilities, good luck, and really bad luck. Guesswork turns the whole shebang into a high-stakes gamble where absolute certainty is just off the table.
Section 4. The Military Genius. Overcoming the Chaos.
So how do you overcome this chaos? Clausewitz identified a crucial trait of the military genius, and that is coup d'oeil, literally meaning a stroke of the eye. It represents the inward eye, this incredibly quick recognition of a truth that the mind would normally completely miss in the absolute madness of action. And this is where we bring in our first commander to see this in practice.
During the North African campaign of 1941-42, German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel totally exemplified this. Surrounded by this highly fluid, chaotic desert environment, Rommel's coup d'oeil allowed him to spot and exploit fleeting tactical truths and enemy weaknesses that others literally couldn't see.
Clausewitz argued that a commander needs an intellect that retains an inner light of truth, plus the sheer determination to actually follow it. Rommel, under friction, operationalized this through incredible speed of decision and a concept called Führung von vorne, which means leading from the front. By commanding directly from the vanguard, the very front lines, he essentially bypassed broken communication lines and cut through the immediate friction, forcing his panzers forward through sheer willpower. But we have to note, avoiding any hagiography here, this extreme forward presence had major drawbacks. It sometimes caused severe strategic blindness, occasionally leaving his own staff totally paralyzed and his supply lines dangerously overextended.
Section 5. The Reality of Conflict. The Paraguayan War. Let's pivot now to examine another commander operating under extreme friction, but this time during the deadliest interstate conflict in Latin American history. Just setting the stage neutrally here. On one side you have Paraguay, led by Francisco Solano Lopez, and on the other, the massive triple alliance of Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. We're going to analyze General José Eduvigis Díaz. He was Paraguay's most capable tactician, and he faced immense, almost totally insurmountable friction fighting a massively resource-rich coalition.
Between the outbreak of the war in 1864 and his death, Díaz showed frankly remarkable tactical acumen, especially given the claustrophobic, incredibly swampy terrain of South America. Interestingly, much like Rommel, Díaz under friction heavily utilized Führung von vorne and blistering speed of decision. Whether he was orchestrating the defense at the swamps of Estarabalaco or pulling off the staggering victory at Crupiati, Díaz had to navigate absolute logistical nightmares. He used his coup d'oeil to turn that brutal terrain into a weapon against an overwhelmingly superior enemy force.
Yet, as Clausewitz warns us, friction eventually catches up to all commanders. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers perished in this absolute war, and this staggering human cost forces us into a critical synthesis of both Rommel and Díaz. Despite their individual brilliance in overcoming immediate, on-the-ground tactical chaos, the broader overarching strategic friction of war ruthlessly ground down the respective forces over time. For example, Rommel's Afrika Corps slowly bled out in the vast desert, completely starved of supplies.
Similarly, the collision of political purpose and relentless grinding friction nearly annihilated the entire Paraguayan nation. When you contrast Rommel's logistical overextension in a wide-open, fluid desert with Díaz's tactical brilliance, which was ultimately doomed by Paraguay's total strategic collapse and sheer demographic exhaustion, you see a clear pattern. Neither commander was immune to the limits of human endurance. No matter how masterful their battlefield mechanics were, they just couldn't indefinitely hold off the crushing weight of strategic friction.
Which perfectly echoes Clausewitz's stark warning. War is no pastime. It is a serious means to a serious end. Despite their rapid decision-making and that sharp coup d'oeil exhibited by both Rommel and Díaz, they were both ultimately subjected to the unforgiving, deadly reality of war's friction. Their localized tactical victories, no matter how brilliant, simply couldn't mask the terrifying consequences of prolonged conflict, the kind of conflict that pushes national survival to the absolute brink.
So, this brings us to an open verdict. We've looked at two absolute masters of Führung von vorne and rapid decision-making as they battled the ultimate enemy, friction. So who managed it better? Was it Erwin Rommel, maneuvering through the vast, unpredictable expanses of the North African desert? Or was it José Eduvigis Díaz, holding the line in the claustrophobic, resource-starved trenches of South America? Well, that historical verdict is entirely yours to decide. How do you navigate the friction and chance in your own daily battles? Think on that. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will catch you next time.